Welcome to Title Talk with your host, Drew Wishover, entrepreneur, a published author, and owner of Inspired Title Group, along with his co-host and CEO, Amy Maley. Each week, they offer you some laughs, industry terminology, tips and strategies, along with the occasional real estate professional to help educate you as it pertains to buying, selling, or just plain old homeownership. Thanks for spending time with them. Now, let's jump into today's episode of Title Talk.
Hi! Welcome to the Thursday edition of Title Talk. My name is Amy.
I'm Drew.
And you're here, and we're here, and it's going to be a great day.
We're thankful that you are. And if you've missed anything, you didn't, because we're going to recap
It was
now.
Drew trying to rhyme. He was trying to rap. That's all that you missed. About hostess with the mostest and toast.
This is a toast. Yeah.
Cheers to you.
Exactly. Cheers. Cheers. Right. Today, as you might have heard, if you didn't hear, here it comes again. We're going to talk about some title terms, definitions, things that you hear in the business, the industry, the real estate world. So we're going to kind of dive into some of those things, as well as we'll talk about our ITG Gives Back Big Week.
We will.
Is a very big week for Amy and the
Co.
world of golf and
Amy in the world of golf. I like it.
So yeah, this is going to be a good time. So we're going to now teach you a little bit about going on to some terms, definitions that you guys may or may not have heard, or maybe even wonder what they are. And Brittany has done another killer job here with this. Nice job, Britt. The first term that kind of goes along with our business and what we hear a little bit is affidavit. We hear and see these a lot.
There are millions of different kinds of affidavits. A general statement for it is that it is a written statement or declaration sworn to before an officer who has authority to administer an oath. Yep. So that's a long way of saying.
So you're basically stating on an affidavit that you are the person you say you are, you live where you say you live, you're going to do the things you say you're going to do, and this document will then be able to be used if there is any kind of deceit. We see like the judgment affidavit.
I was going to say, so like one of the common ones that we'll use is called the judgment affidavit. And what that does is, so say there's a name, Bob Joe. There's probably 700 million Bob Joes in the universe. So for me, like for our job, it's impossible to be able to tie and go through every single judgment or lien or mortgage that's against this individual. So what we do is we make them fill out this piece of paper that has their name, their job, the places they've lived, and then they're pretty much swearing that
judgment's not
that the judgment is not theirs because it doesn't correspond to this or
right.
this.
I've never lived at any of these addresses. I've never gone by any of these names. I don't know the people or parties that are related to that, so therefore I will sign this affidavit disclaiming that this isn't me, that is being referenced in that.
And the huge part of that is it protects us big time. Correct. Because if something does come back where someone tries to file a claim saying, hey, this person sold this house and this was never satisfied, we say, but we got them to sign this personal information affidavit that says this wasn't them.
Right.
So then that would go back directly to that seller and not to us.
Correct.
So it's a protection piece for us big time.
Correct. So affidavits have they do carry some weight. So if you are signing an affidavit or if you're going to execute it, make sure that you understand what you're signing. Make sure that you read what the claim is to the reason you're signing it.
Yep.
And obviously fill it out truthfully and knowledgeably as well. So next one.
Cruising.
You'll hear this one a little bit more in the lending and or
Yes.
mortgage world, is collateral. And collateral is literally, I guess, to really simplify it, it's you're putting up something to get something, I guess would be the simple version of that. The definition or the term how they like to define it is, in a home loan, the property is the collateral. The borrower risks losing that property if the loan is not repaid according to the terms of the mortgage or deed of trust. So again, you're leveraging your property to borrow money
Right.
to live there, right? So
Yes.
it's as simple as, if I don't pay my mortgage, I know I lose the right to live
Correct.
in that. So the bank is collateralizing your property for the lend of the money to live there. So
And that's why, mortgages, they're based around home value because
very much so,
because you don't want to lend out more than the house is worth, because then
very much so.
you know
Right.
you're kind of screwed. So that's
And
why
it's-
the collateral and the home and the mortgage go hand in hand in
And
hand.
we see it in commercial deals where people will collateralize their home to get a business loan or to buy property for a business.
So this is kind of off topic, but cross collateralizations versus collateralizations.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's
Cross is just numerous.
Correct.
It's I'm gonna
correct.
This loan is collateralized by these three properties
Those are
across those
Such
three
fun
properties.
searches to do.
Right.
They're so
So
fun.
the amount of that loan, the amount of the lend exceeds what your home value
Correct.
is. But what yours, Joe's, your parents down the line, we'll put a lien on all of those,
Yes.
so that if you default on the loan that we're giving you, we have a lien against
Everything
those
else, yeah.
properties. So
Yes.
they would collateralize across a series of different properties.
Exactly.
You want to handle the next one? This is your alley. here.
Conveyance. What is a conveyance?
Conveyance.
I'm going to read the textbook definition and then we'll kind of chit chat a little bit. Transfer of title. It's pretty much what it is. Includes most instruments by which an interest in real estate is created, mortgaged, or assigned. That's a lengthy. When I think of a conveyance, I think about property going from one place to another. Like that's like the easy definition that I like to put towards it. A deed.
Typically done through.
Deeds. Was that a short question? I was about to
Yeah,
say
no, that was.
a conveyance deed
Yeah.
or a deed of conveyance. I'm looking at what else you put about it in here, Britt. I'm reading. That's what I'm doing.
You know, the deed is really the primary piece to exercise a conveyance.
It is.
And we've talked a couple times from various shows of the types of different deeds.
Correct, we have.
And it really
We've
depends
probably
on-
beaten your head a lot about
And
deeds.
it really depends on the purpose of the transaction.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the reason you're doing the conveyance will determine the need for which document to do this. But
Right.
a conveyance is literally a transfer of interest from one party to the other.
Interest, yep.
If you are in title with your spouse or family members, you can transfer your ownership in that property to the other parties, to an individual that is not in the transaction already. So it is just you're conveying. So your conveying and transfer are synonyms in this state. So that is conveyance.
That is conveyance.
Easement. We talked a little bit about this when we did our show about surveys and what what a survey looks like and where they have boundary lines and things of that nature. It's really a right created by a grant to be simple, and the grants come from
Anywhere, I was
the
going to
towns,
say.
the villages, the
Villages,
cities.
towns. I've seen like construction easements. Like
Yep.
sometimes they'll do temporary construction easements that are valid for 5 months, so construction vehicles can have the right to like drive, and if they get into 5 feet of your property, it's not their bad. It's watch out.
Right.
Like,
Right.
sorry, I didn't mean to
No,
hijack.
totally. That's a good input to this because easements are created for reason, for use.
I
I guess
was
the easiest way to give the folks an understanding is utility easements. The utilities, if you're in Indiana, it's NIPSCO. If you're here in Illinois, it's ComEd
ComEd,
and NICOR, and then all your cable companies. They will need an easement to put their items in it to operate. I mean,
Right.
you run the cable in an easement, so it's not in the property, so you don't risk anybody necessarily damaging it.
And I think the other weird thing to say, to note, is that sometimes easements are added to legal descriptions.
They are.
And that, like, I remember the first time I ever saw that, I was like, what? What?
In what example would you say for that?
So, like, I was just thinking about a deal we did for Wishover next door.
Mhm.
That, so they were widening a street.
Right.
So the lot used to start here, and then they were taking part of it to make this part of a road.
Right.
So they added in, because of getting this easement for this road,
Mm-hmm.
the legal description then said, like, lot blah 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 minus 5 feet
Mm-hmm.
taken from the easement for the construction of the road.
Correct.
So like I said, it's easements. I don't think it's really easy to say they're only on a survey. You can find them. You'll see easements sometimes in a legal. You'll see easements on a survey. You'll see easements
You see
in a lot of
easements
different
for
places.
ingress and egress,
Yep.
which
Yep.
is just entrance and exit.
Yeah.
You know how.
That was
how do
another
you-
weird one.
How
Yeah.
do you get to the property? How, you'll see an
Uh-huh.
easement that's for ingress and egress, and it's, oh wait, this is an access way to get to that property, because if there's
Yes.
not a dedicated way, how do you get there? So easements are really all encompassing for utilities, for their agreements. I mean, you can have an easement agreement with your neighbor that you
Anyone
share.
could actually
Yeah,
a shared
shared
driveway easement. Yeah, we
Mhm.
saw one of those in one of
Absolutely.
our projects out in Maywood.
Absolutely. So that's
yeah.
an easement.
I feel like we didn't really define easement. I feel like we just threw a lot of different ways easements are
I think
used.
we defined it through example.
Yeah,
And,
we did.
So if you have more questions about easements, give us a shout. We'll be happy to help. The next one. This is a big term for a little word. Okay, you've heard us speak about granting title, doing title searches to make sure that there are no encumbrances.
No, wait, go. We're on endorsement.
Oh,
We got it.
Okay, that's fine. Let's skip it over. We'll do endorsement.
Sorry,
next.
I just
That's okay.
before.
Yeah, no, we'll go ahead and do endorsement. Go ahead, Abe. That's this.
I don't like this word. I'm just kidding. So an endorsement, I'm gonna read again,
Yeah.
and then we'll talk. As to a title insurance policy, a rider or attachment forming a part of the insurance policy, expanding or limiting coverage.
Right.
It also refers to the act of signing a name. Oh, we're not going to talk about that one yet.
Right.
Let's just talk about regular endorsements first.
Right.
Usually required by lenders. Sometimes required, so lenders would mean a loan policy, and then sometimes owners' policies will require an endorsement.
Mhm.
We have standard endorsements that usually go with every single deal. And what does it do? What does it say? Go
What does
ahead.
it say? Oh, you're asking me.
No, I'm telling you because I was talking a lot. So I was
Sure.
letting you chime in on it.
So the different endorsements will protect or add coverage to what is already the policy language. They also could remove from the policy language. I see that either you're pointing, you're stretching,
No, I have a
you've
hand
got
up.
an itch, or you've got a question.
Okay, so we have these. We have an 8.9. I'm sorry, an 8.1 and a 9.1 endorsement that almost goes on, goes on everything we do.
Mhm.
So will it ever just happen? Do you think where the endorsements are like written into part of a policy?
And that's what's happened over the evolution of this, that the policy jacket
Mm-hmm.
starts to take on some of the standardized
Yes.
things that the industry requires.
Mhm.
So such as those two endorsements that you mentioned, that they
There's-
cover generic and general
Correct.
conditions. So
Correct.
those would be things that I think in time would be added to the policy.
I think it would make sense. Just
The odd ones, the encroachment endorsements, the
the survey endorsements. Yeah.
like the encroachment endorsement is saying that, yep, we see it's listed on the policy, and it's an exclusion, it's an exception from coverage. However, with said endorsement, we are now saying that we will cover for any liability or loss as
Because
reason
of that.
to
Yeah.
that encroachment
Yeah.
or issue. So the endorsement in that case is acting as a coverage piece.
Mhm.
Sometimes it removes exceptions as well,
Right.
and it deals with them that way. So it's just a protection for the policy that it's attached to.
And
Right.
it's usually like I said, it's usually protecting the lender. It's usually attached to a loan policy. Not always.
Yeah, the lenders are they require certain endorsements
PUD,
based on what they're lending.
right.
That's right.
Condos always have one.
Condo endorsements, exactly.
They have a planned unit development endorsement, and that that's for properties that have covenants conditions for HOAs.
Right.
Those are like the main ones that I think we usually mess with.
And the exceptions from coverage endorsements are different. So we'll go on to encumbrances.
Now it's your
which
fun
is
word.
where we were a
Yes.
moment ago. But
Go for it.
that's a big word. And you've heard Amy and I talk throughout these different shows when we talk title and say that her responsibility is searching the public records to protect you guys from any liens or encumbrances that are on your property. And an encumbrance is literally just that. It's a lien. It's a charge or liability that is attached to the property. It's really a big and fancy way to say there's a mortgage on your property, if there's an encumbrance. If there's a lien on your property, there's an encumbrance.
An encumbrance is just like the umbrella term for any judgment, any mortgage, any claim, any lien, anything that any unpaid taxes. Those are all considered encumbrances that will hinder you to be able to sell your property.
Yeah, those are the items that we are here for. That's our
Your friendly title
main
company.
responsibility at Inspired Title that we are doing on a day in, day out is reporting the news, sharing with the lenders, the attorneys, the clients, all of the news on their property.
Yeah.
The liens, the encumbrances, the building lines, the easements, all of that stuff. Then it's the responsibility becomes of, in Illinois, the attorney to facilitate clearing those items up.
Correct. To clear title, they call it.
Yeah. So what are we going to do? We're going to get a release for that mortgage encumbrance, mortgage lien. We're going to handle that judgment that has been filed against the seller so now they can sell the property. Tax liens.
Weed
Again,
cutting liens, my favorite one.
everything in the world that you can think of that would be a lien is an encumbrance on title. So
Yes.
the Amy World is putting the details on title to show everybody, and then the closing piece is I'm going to issue clear title and saying that this property is now clear and free and clear of any of these encumbrances now.
And anything that does not get satisfied will stay on that policy.
And people do. They understand that they're taking this thing exception
Subject to. Yeah.
So they know that there's a
Don't do
tax
that.
issue. So if they really, really want this property, they understand it, they'll handle that couple $1,000 tax lien because there's value in the property to do that. So now we go on to a little bit more of the
I'm gonna let you take the lead
terms
on
and
these.
things that deal with death and how wills and trusts and things are really kind of materialized. So
I don't even like saying this word.
yeah, testate is really the again big term for saying that you passed with a will. So you have a last will and testament. So you died with a will. You died testate.
And that's pretty cut and dry. If you have a will, there's not going to be a lot that's able to happen as far as.
Yep.
But I'm rightfully, based on son, daughter, like
It's all
nephew,
defined.
niece, uncle. That's what I'm. So
Yeah.
it's like, if God forbid someone passes and you're left with 25% ownership of this house and somebody else is left with 75% ownership of a house, it's cut and dry and it's what it says.
Yeah. The will define, if done correctly, it will define the separation of all your property and where the delegation and where it's all going to go. That makes a little bit of what we do easier because
Oh, yes.
if somebody can provide that will, we don't need to discover and determine
The heirs and legatees and
who's
What do we
involved,
do?
where's everybody at?
Yeah,
And
it's-
that's where the next one, which is in testate, which you would think would be the opposite.
it's weird. It's one of those strange ones. Yeah.
Intestate is
Not
dying,
interstate.
Yeah, right.
Not to be confused.
Intestate is dying, passing without a will. This leaves it open now to
This is hard.
wow, where do all my assets go? Now, in our world, we're only concerned about the real estate asset,
Correct.
which is the house, the property, you know, and the ownership of what that looks like. So Amy mentioned a couple terms earlier, a moment ago, about heirs and legatees. So usually a will define a executor or an executrix of handling the details.
Correct.
Okay, there's somebody appointed to handle that. When it's intestate, it goes to probate, it goes to the court system,
Oh my, it's
and the state. I
it's
mean,
a
it
mess.
becomes
a lot.
a little more involved, and that's why the emphasis of doing a will is important.
Yeah, it
because
is.
we see probably more of this than the other.
100%. I would say that we definitely deal with these more.
No question.
And
I
it's-
think that this is a
It's
common-
hard. It's a
It's sad.
challenge. It's
It is sad because
yeah.
when the deceased party is now, the family is left to sort out that mess of ownership, and now you've got heirs that don't get along, and you've got siblings that are, you know, across the country, they don't speak. I mean,
It's
cut and
crazy.
dry.
I think that it was probably 4 years ago that we dealt with those. It was like 7 siblings
Mm-hmm.
where
Mhm.
one had, you know, some kind of disability, so one was appointed to act on behalf of, like, it was
They're a
just
guardian.
they were acting as a guardian, so they were trying to figure out what was fair to
It-
split the split the proceeds from the
it
house. It
really
gets messy.
involved. Yeah,
that was like the most heated closing I think I ever witnessed.
yeah, because the rules around this are pretty cut and dry for us as title people, that if there are heirs, they all have an equal share of what
just
that
cut it.
ownership is. So if there's 5 brothers and sisters that, you know, are children of the deceased, it's divided
20% each. Yep.
1/5. You know, they each get 20% of that property.
Mhm.
Whether you love them or not, they
It's
get
what
it.
is what it is.
Whereas the will could say, all right, well, we're going to leave 3 of those people out. That's already written and decided. That's already done. So we need to focus on that new procedure, saying,
Mhm.
all right, all 5 of these folks get 1/5 of the proceeds from the sale of that property.
Correct.
And it does, like Amy said, it does sometimes get ugly and messy. So again, you'll hear intestate, which is dying without a will, and then testate is obviously dying with a will. So again, if you have more questions about this stuff, please, we don't expect that you're gonna, you know, learn it all today and right now, but these are just some terms that we figured you'd pass along to you guys. How about subordination, Amy?
Subordination is a procedure of allowing a new loan to take priority over an existing loan. Also to use with encumbrances, but I'm saying loan because that's what I usually see it as. So
Mhm.
say I take a mortgage out, and then I also take out a second mortgage. So I have one for 300, I have one for 75.
Mhm.
I decide to refinance my house. So I refinance the $300,000 loan.
Mhm. You're gonna get lost in your own story.
Nope, I'm good. But the $75,000 mortgage is still open. So what a subordination agreement would say is that the new mortgage, even though it's newer than the $75,000 mortgage,
Mhm.
it comes in first place. So usually the way judgments work is it goes oldest to newest. So like the oldest mortgage is always listed first unless you have a subordination agreement that says, nope, this new one is priority over the other 2.
Right, and
That was a more sharing a story to give a
And
definition.
that's okay. The subordinate mortgage is usually the bigger risk. You know, they want to be in front of. They don't want to be in a second lien position in case there's a foreclosure,
Mm-hmm.
because they've got a higher liability. You know, that $300,000 example over the 75, they stand to lose a lot more.
Correct.
So they want to make sure that they're ahead of the 75, and therefore the subordination agreement is recorded to substantiate that and say, look, I'm bumping you, I'm going ahead.
This goes first.
And
Um,
it's typically not uncommon or even really thought.
No, I see them. I think more so often I see them with like a HELOC revolving line of credits, those kind. I usually see the subordination agreements recorded for new mortgages if line of credits are staying open.
Mhm.
So
Yeah, that's probably one of the best examples of it is say you don't have a mortgage on your house and you're going to do some repairs. You take out a $20,000 mortgage, and then all of a sudden times go by and you decide that you want to actually take out a legitimate mortgage on your house because you've got some bigger life plans. So now you borrow $150,000. Well, you don't want that 20. Well, you don't really care.
You don't care.
The bank doesn't want that 20 in front of its 150. So they're going to subordinate that 20 so the 150 gets in front.
correct.
And so you'll be asked to sign a subordination agreement. It's not a bad thing. There's nothing wrong with it.
No.
It's just kind of putting all of your liens
Mhm.
in a proper order for the title and how it reads and looks.
Because if, in the example Drew gave, if a subordination agreement wasn't recorded and I ran title on that and there was no agreement, I mean, theoretically it should go the line of credit
Right.
with the, the newer, bigger mortgage underneath it. So that subordination agreement would say, nope.
Yep.
Um, flip it.
And if they were to foreclose,
It would be foreclosing on the $20,000 line of credit instead of the
Yep.
actual mortgage.
so the 20,000 line of credit would get the most attention, and then the
Which is crazy to
150
think about.
would get $5,000 of that attention. So yeah, it's really rough. So you'll hear first lien position, and that's what that's an example of. Is they want to have the first lien. They want to be the first one out there to be paid in
If
case of
anything
a
happens.
default.
Yes.
That's really the long and the short of that. And then finally, we wrap this up with something that we are hearing, something that's a little bit more common because of just travel, people being working from homes and doing the different things that they're doing today, is power of attorney. And
Sometimes shortened to POA. You'll hear that a
you'll hear
lot.
POA, which is standing for power of attorney.
Mhm.
So it's really a person who is the principal giving another person the authority or attorney in fact to act on their behalf. Okay, acting on their behalf could be really defined in several different ways. You need to exercise the power of attorney specific to what you're wanting them to do, because if you grant somebody the power of attorney to
Do everything for you.
full
Like
power could give them access to your bank accounts and all
that's-
those things. So you want to make sure that there's general powers, there's
Limited.
special property, there's limited. You need to really understand, and this is where the attorneys will help you to determine which one is best for you
Right.
guys. But the example of yesterday, simple closing, where it was a divorce situation, a little odd, but the wife,
this is was this a
yes,
refinance? Yeah.
the wife had the power of attorney for her ex-husband to sign on his behalf. Sounds weird. It is a little weird, but yet he knew that
She was
she was going to be
Yep.
getting the house and the proceeds from that house. So he authorized her to sign all the documents for that refinance on his behalf. That's all. I mean, it was limited to just that transaction. So that doesn't mean that
was
she
she an
gets to go
attorney?
clean out the bank account. No.
So it was like,
No.
and that's why I brought that up. 'Cause
Right.
So like, limited powers of attorneys or power of attorney. It's like
Yep.
it's such a broad term.
And it varies
Because
by
it's-
state. You have to be
Right,
careful for
exactly,
that too,
exactly.
because Illinois' power of attorney is different than Indiana, and they don't cross borders.
Do not.
So
They do not.
just because you have a power of attorney for your spouse or guardian or whatever that is, doesn't mean you can use it countrywide. They're going to be specific to the states, and each state has their
Different rules
differences.
and
So
regulations.
make sure that you're just aware of some of those things. But a power of attorney can be a very powerful thing,
Oh yeah.
and we as a title company have to do a little bit of examining of it to make sure that they're within their right to do what they're being asked to do.
hmm
And then the lenders in the same case, the lenders are saying, I want to see that POA
Yes. Because they want to examine it to make sure.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So if we as a title company are going to ensure the transaction utilizing that POA, that takes that liability off of the lender.
Correct.
Because we're insuring it. We're going to issue a title policy based on that signature. But if John Q. Public didn't have the right to sign on behalf of Sue Public, then Now we got an issue
Then we have a big problem.
because now, Sue comes in and goes, whoa, whoa, whoa. I never authorized that.
Correct.
And the title got transferred
Without her.
without this. So it becomes a really big mess to unravel that, and these are the title nightmares that are out there and available
Yeah.
to talk about. But so we just wanted to give you guys a few terms and
10. That was
talk
10.
about a few different things that you might hear. Kind of picked out a few different ones to kind of dive into, but we can do this for days. And
Oh, yes.
So if there's things that you guys want to know, again, you can always get
Always
ahold
let
of
us know.
We're always around to chat, and your friendly folks here at Inspired Title are more than happy to help you guys out with understanding any of the terms and anything that you really
Definitions.
run into. Yeah, exactly. So that is our little bit of title time today. We thank you guys for listening in and joining. Why don't we wrap it up and let our folks get on with their Thursday? We'll do our ITG quote of the day.
I sure will. Life is like riding a bicycle. To keep your balance, you must keep moving.
Yes,
Good
indeed.
old Albert Einstein.
Yes, indeed. You gotta
E
love
equals MC
Albert.
squared. I love Albert. I love his name even more than him.
Yes, indeed. That's great. You like Albert. That's a wonderful thing. I've got one day or day one. You decide.
It's a good one.
So we're.
Day one.
I'm always gonna take day one. Today is the first day of the rest of my life, and that's something that Carol and I talk about a lot and kind of live through. So I hope you guys enjoyed today the definitions and terms of
Sure you
some
loved
title
them.
things. I'm sure if you're still joining us, if you're still even awake. we
I
thank
only
you
almost fell
guys.
asleep once. Just
Yeah,
kidding.
I saw you yawn twice.
you
but
would've said
there
yawn,
you
so I
go.
did it
See, I said
again.
it, there you do it. It's like almost on point. If you guys have any questions, if you want to connect with us, please subscribe and follow and do all those social media things that are being done today. We're Inspired Title Group, located in Palos Heights, located in Indiana. My name is Drew.
And my name is Amy.
Until next time, we bid you adieu. Take care, everybody. Have a great week.
Well, there you have it. That is it for this week's edition of Title Talk. Be sure to head over to our Inspired YouTube page and subscribe and like. And make sure you follow the team on Instagram and Facebook. Join us again next time for more tips and knowledge from the industry pros. Thanks again for listening.